Happy holidays everyone! Welcome to Octokeeper's devlog series. This week I work on the water of the game. As the creature the character is carrying is an octopus, I thought about a mechanic with water. The player will have to keep the baby octopus wet so it can survive the journey. He will throw it in this water and let it swim around for a while. I did different approaches to achieve a nice looking water. I will show you in a bit. I added to my Trello board new cards for the water mechanic. The initial idea was to make the water with a shader. Also, I needed to decide the design behind this mechanic. Things like how many wet points will the baby octopus earn while swimming? How will the player retrieve it from the pond? I started creating the water shader. The shader is based on the Brackish Simple cartoon water video. In that video, the shader is meant for a 3D game, but it can also be used in 2D games. Check the description for the link of the video. The idea for the shader is to have a plain color for the water, and some generated waves. For the waves it uses a Voronoi noise, that after a few alterations can resemble organic waves. This generated noise can have a different color to highlight them more. I also added a value to control the opacity of the water. Having it completely opaque will be a bit weird. With the shader done, I created a new material based on it, and an object that will have this material. The problem with this approach is that I couldn't use a tileset for the water, as the material will be applied to each tile and create a grid effect. For a seamless effect, I had to create an object with a sprite, and as you can see, the result is a bit out of place. The rest of the game is pixel art, and having this kind of water will break the art style of the game. I tried adding a radial set node to the shader to achieve a better look, but sadly this approach wasn't right for this game. The good thing is that I learned how to use shader graph to create water, so it's something. It was clear that I needed to create the water as a rule tile in pixel art. I like the idea of the water being semi-transparent. Let's see how that goes with a pixel art tileset. But before I jump into my rule tile template to create the water tile, I wanted to try the actual animation of the water. Once I had an animation that I like, I could bring the frames to the template and generate a new rule tile. The animation will consist of two layers: base water flow and wave rings. The base water flow was easy to make, but the wave rings are a bit hard to make. The movement needs to be organic enough and seamless to create a believable effect. Luckily, Sprite has an option to enable tiling on your image, and it's great for creating seamless tilesets. To create depth, I added shine to the waves and used more colors. This was the result. It wasn't a bad tileset, but it seemed too busy for me. There was too many details on this water, and I think it will be distracting for the player. Also, I doubt that the contrast between the water and the baby octopus will be good. Octokeeper uses plain colors and simple forms, so I needed to create a water tile following that style. So, this time I used my rule tile template to create a simpler water tile. For this version I only used two colors, one for the base and another for the waves. The animation will consist of a 4-frame loop for the waves, and the base color will change its position a bit to emulate water movement. Here was the result. Maybe I overdid the waves a bit, but I think this was better than the last approach. I jumped back into Unity and started making a new rule tile. I used the same approach I showed in a previous devlog. Import the image to Unity, duplicate an existing rule tile, replace the images looking at the number suffix. But in this case the rule tile is animated, so I had to assign 4 images per tile. This was time consuming, but it would be worse if I didn't have other rule tile previously set. As the water will be transparent, I needed to create 2 new layers of tiles, one for the water itself and another for the area behind it. This meant reorganizing the order of all tile layers. Here was the result. I did something wrong and there was parts of the rule tile showing the wrong image. To fix this, I went back to the water rule tile and checked the animations. There was one that used the 18 suffix, but in the last frame I made a mistake and used the 17 image. Now it was working properly, although the character obtained the ability of walking on water. As he is not the Messiah, I needed to fix this. The way I handle the collision of the tile is using a transparent solid tile. When I need to place new collisions, I enable the color of the tile, marked in red, and place new tiles. I just needed to add new collisions to the water so the player will stop walking on it. Here was the result. But I wasn't entirely happy with it, as the waves seemed a bit distracting. So I removed the waves and made the water go up and down, to simulate the tide. There were some strange clipping between tiles, and it probably happens because of the tiling of the rule tile, but I will fix that later. Now I wanted to add an effect to the area below the water. Do you remember a program I used in last episode? It's called Use Effects, and it will be great to create the effect I have in mind. The rock behind the water needs to be animated in a wavy effect, and this program will let me do that easily. First I used a 30 frame animation, but later I realized that using an 8 frame one will do the trick. To use this new object with the animation, I needed to add another layer between the water and the tiles below it. This animation will be drawn between the water and the base of the pond. This was the result. I liked this effect a lot, so I went back to Use Effects and created new animation for the diagonal sections of the rock behind the water. As this object will be behind the ground tileset, I can make the animation as big as I want. Only the part below the water will be visible anyway. Back in Unity, I duplicated the rock object and used the new diagonal animation. Here was the result. It was almost perfect, at least for me, but a detail was missing. I wanted to only animate a part of the rock, so the top part will stand still. This was easy using Use Effects. The top part of the wall rock will be a regular tile, while the bottom animated part will be an object with the frame animations. And that was my week. As we are in holidays, I didn't have too much time to work on Octokeeper. But well, I think this water is pretty decent. What do you think? Next, I have to make the baby octopus dive in it and swim around. Thanks so much for watching my videos, the support has been great. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this content, and follow me on Twitter to get frequent updates about Octokeeper. As always, if you have any suggestions or ideas for the game or the channel, I will be glad to read your comments. Happy holidays and be safe. See you next week.